Okay, folks, this is a True American Podcast. I am your host. As many of you know, you can watch some of really all my interviews at booktalkwithcorbin.com. It's in my website there. Today, I had this couple come in, Mr. and Mrs. Buncher. Is that correct? Is
I'm
that
sure.
yeah?
Yes.
I wanted them to come in, and not to talk about politics and things of that nature, but really talk about something I think it's absolutely critical we get more information about, and it's about adoption. With this whole thing with Supreme Court, Roe versus Wade, I think it's really important that we get information out to regular Kentuckians about adoption, the ups and downs, the ins and outs of adoption. And my understanding is that you guys have adopted 4 children?
3 children.
3? Okay. And it was over a 10-year period, 5-year period?
Probably about 5 or 6 year period.
Okay. All right. So this is still sort of new to you, fresh to you. So what I'd like to do is I'll first ask Mr. Buncher.
Mark,
Mark.
please.
Okay. We'll ask Brother Mark here to sort of kick us off and share some things that's on your heart about adoption.
All right. Thanks, Brother Corbin. I'm just going to lead off and say, Kathy and I we had 4 biological children before we went down the journey of fostering and adopting. And I think and they were 4 very close in age. I was in the military, retired military, so all our kids were, when I was in the military, bouncing around from assignment to assignment. Ended up in Kentucky post-military retirement, and we had always talked about how we ought to look into adoption, how neat it sounded to adopt children, and we thought we were pretty decent parents and did a decent job at it, so that's a gift that we could share. And then, but all we did was talk about it, I guess. And one New Year's morning, woke up and Kathy said, our New Year's resolution this year is going to be that we're going to get serious about this idea of adoption. And I said, sure, honey, I'll let you run with that. And you just keep me informed of what you find out. And at that time, we really thought, all we heard about was private adoption, and man, that's expensive. At least that's what we heard, and kind of looked into it. Or, as Kathy would give me these reports, it was, as I recall, private adoption was, at the time, we knew a lot of couples that were doing the overseas adoption thing, and it was expensive. There was no guarantees, as I recall from the stories we heard, that you were going to end up with a child after investing money.
Give me a ball.
Studies and things. And then we learned, or Kathy learned, that right here in our backyard in the state of Kentucky, there were, I want to say, Kathy, the number of kids was like 3,000 kids that were ready to be needed to be adopted. And frankly, it doesn't cost anything, I don't recall, to go down that path. So we went down that path, and I learned quickly, in talking to the state of Kentucky and social workers, that you needed to really have the kids that you really needed to be a foster parent first. And at that time, I think we said, oh yeah, we would like to adopt young, the desired child would be a baby, as I recall. But they said, well, if you want to have any chance of that, you should foster first. So we went through the process of becoming foster parents, and it entailed like 10 weeks, one night a week, going to classes and learning how to be a foster parent. And we kind of did it a little reluctantly by thinking, okay, we've already parented 4 kids, and what else can you teach us about being a parent? And quickly learned there was so much. It's so different to parent a child that's in the foster care system, hurt child, I'll put that quite often hurt, and either physically or mentally, definitely, emotionally, I should say. So we got through that, and even before our last class, before we graduated as being foster parents, they called us and said, we have some children we'd like to foster. We'd like you to consider fostering. And so we started fostering, and quickly that led a lot of the kids that you foster end up needing to be adopted. And so that's maybe where I'll pause, Kathy, and let you take over.
All right. Let me ask a few quick questions here. You had first sort of examined the private agency route. When you say it was expensive, how much money were you thinking about?
I can answer that, Mark, because I remember, I think what I remember most and what kind of led me away from speaking with anyone is that they wanted money up front. And I think at the time it was a $500 deposit to even meet us. And that turned me off because I just thought adoption should not be like that.
Right.
We're wanting to open our home, help children, but you don't even want to speak with us unless you get money from us. So that was turned me off. And I was speaking with a dear friend of mine who had actually already adopted a child. And she, and I knew her from church, and she said, Kathy, go through the state. And there's so many children. And she's the one that made Mark and I both aware of the need here in our own backyards. And so that was the beginning of the journey because of that lady and her conversation with me. She just gave me hope. And I was on a mission, like Mark said. I wanted to help. I felt like we've been blessed and we need to get back. And my parents always taught me that, you get back to your community. And this was one way that I felt Mark and I could get back to our community is by opening our home to children.
Did it cost you anything when you went the state route?
No, the state pay it, it costs us gas mileage, big deal. We drove to the meetings. They pay, I don't know if there was a stipend for the meeting. I can't remember that. But when you become a foster parent and these children are placed in your home, there is a stipend that foster parents get. And Mark, you can correct me on this if I don't have it correct. Even post when you adopt them, if you, I'm not for sure if it's for all state children, but we've adopted some very special needs children. So there was a state subsidy until they turned age 21 or out of school.
Yeah, it's till 18, unless they continue their schooling, like go to college, and then it's up till 21. But that's only for kids that are labeled, I guess, special needs. And special needs children. But
special needs, it doesn't mean just a mental disability. These children that are very traumatized in their early years, they would be labeled as special needs. And so the ones that come from the most difficult situation, the state's going to provide. And you have to listen, you have to learn, you have to navigate and advocate for these children to get the supports, and they do offer supports.
Okay.
I want to be careful. I don't want to speak for the state or what characteristics or what labels a child special needs versus not. But even like children of sibling groups could be called special needs, and at least that's the way it was when we adopted our children. Okay,
all right. And let me ask you this too. Were your children still in the household when you started fostering?
Yeah, great question. Our youngest was in 8th grade.
Our freshman.
Our youngest biological child, or maybe a freshman in high school.
Freshman in high school.
Yeah. And then I think our oldest was senior in high school, honey, or maybe
Just starting. The oldest was just starting college, and then
Two
the
in
second
between.
one had 2 years. So I guess the youngest was in 8th grade, and the second one, he was a junior going into his junior year, and the third child was going into her freshman year.
And did you have to sort of like do family counseling sessions to help them sort of adjust to the new residents, I guess you might say? Or
Yes, we did. We spoke a lot to our children. I'll be honest with you, we were probably a little naive about what we were really getting involved with, and it's been one of the greatest blessings to adopt, but there are challenges along the way, and I highly recommend as many supports as you can find. The children get the kids that come into your home, the foster children get counseling. We ended up getting family counseling, and
it's a challenge. Yeah, there's no doubt. It's
a lot of talking.
It's lots of challenges with it, but lots of blessings too.
You're right. I can imagine. I mean, it's just difficult just to deal with your own.
Yeah. And I'll be honest. I mean, we didn't. It's not like we sat around the kitchen table and took a vote. It was like, this is mom and dad's decision, and we're going to do this, guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe that was the right way. Maybe it was the wrong way. I don't know, but it's what we did.
Yeah. We're never going to say we did everything the right way, because we don't really know what the right way was. And I always tell people my expertise is in special disabilities, special needs children that have mental disabilities.
Okay. My
expertise does not lie in mental health.
Okay.
And that was the biggest challenge for us, because I think we just were naive to really what went on with children in our state as far as the abuses. And it was trying to take a child that never learned to trust their primary caregiver and to help them to trust is a lifelong journey. Now we're very the first child that we adopted, we're so proud of her. She's serving our country right now in the U.S. Navy.
Right.
And we're just extremely proud of her that she was able to come from some of the most horrific abuses and to be where she's at now. Was it easy? Absolutely not. But we've loved her along the way. We've felt many times where we were knocked down and had to rebuild trust, but we always worked on rebuilding trust and always loved. That love never ended. And
now, how long have you guys been married when you started doing this?
It was in 2003, so I guess 20 years.
Okay.
20 years, right?
25.
25.
No.
It was 20. We got married in 83. Right?
Yeah.
So I think 20 years, and we're going on our 40th next year.
Oh, okay, great. So that's a pretty solid foundation. I mean, if I'm looking at a family, I'm looking at a couple, I'm looking at a family, I said, well, these guys seem pretty stable.
Right.
But would you recommend this for a single woman, a single guy?
I don't know. I mean, I really wouldn't be able to say. I think fostering children is a beautiful thing. Adopting children is a beautiful thing. So I wouldn't want to say no. I think, do I see value in having both a mother and a father? Absolutely. But man, if a kid needs to be adopted,
it needs to be loved.
I mean, that can come in a lot of different ways.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to close. I would not want to say, no, you shouldn't do that.
Well, and I'm assuming the Commonwealth of Kentucky doesn't say, oh no, single. We don't want you to adopt.
I don't think so. I think they're pretty.
No, they don't. I mean, there's no discrimination on just as long as you pass all your background checks and are a good law-abiding citizen, I think you can adopt in the state of Kentucky.
Okay, it sounds good. Are there other ways children become, I guess, a hard way to put, adoptable per the Commonwealth of Kentucky? I mean, they're in the foster system, and then how is it you're able to adopt them? Because they obviously have parents.
Well, so the goal when a child, and again, I don't want to speak for the state, and it's been, we stopped fostering 10 years ago or so,
Yeah.
Kathy, but so things have changed. But that when a child goes in foster care system, they make it very clear the goal is reunification with their parents, the biological parents. That's the goal. And sometimes that happens and sometimes that doesn't. So as a foster parent, that's a hard thing about being a foster parent is obviously a child comes into your home, you start caring for them, you're going to grow attached to them in a very deep way, and they to you. And sometimes those children then go back to their parents, and you have to be prepared for that, and that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
We had some foster children that we had fostered for 6 months or longer, and then it was the parents got their issues to get together, and the state said, okay, it's time for the child to go back, and we had to say goodbye. And that was the extremely hard thing to do. You have to be prepared for that. And I always said, I just would sometimes feel like I had to guard my emotions towards that foster child, knowing that could happen. So but it's hard. It's hard. How do you parent a child as a foster parent and guard your emotions? That's kind of hard.
Right. I hear you.
Yeah.
You about to say something, sis? I
was just going to say that that was the most challenging thing for both of us, because you fall deeply because you're caring deeply for these children. But ultimately, you do pray and hope that their parents can reunify with their children. But
obviously in the case of the 3 children we adopted, that didn't occur. So the biological parents lost the right. What's the term, Kathy?
The rights were terminated.
Rights were terminated, right? And that's obviously through the court system. It takes time, but in the case of 3 children that we adopted, parental rights were terminated, and then then you go through a process of adoption.
Yeah. Okay.
And frankly, the state paid for all that too, that process. So it is, it doesn't cost you anything to do that.
Okay.
I think we had to pay for our attorney to represent us, to make sure we were protected in the proceedings. But the state pays for the child's attorney and all the court costs and things of that sort.
Okay. All right. Folks, this is the True American Podcast. I'm your host. I have other interviews you may want to check out at booktalkwithcorbin.com. Today I'm speaking with Mr. and Mrs. Buncher. We're talking about adopting children here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, something I think that we need to hear more about, and we need to keep sharing this kind of information, getting this out there. My own personal situation, one of my uncles, he was adopted, and I really didn't know what that meant. He's just Uncle Lawrence to me, and I love my Uncle Lawrence.
Yeah.
Adopted or not. And one thing I noticed, he's extremely close to my grandfather and my father. He got very upset when they died, but it's just like people say, well, he's adopted. And I said, well, yeah, but he's Uncle Lawrence.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it was just amazing how that boom, he fit right in there. And I don't think my uncle ever did find his biological parents. I don't think he ever did. But this is something that's very important. We need to get this out to folks. Hey, consider that. Well, we got a couple of minutes left. Sis, you got something you want to share with us here?
Yes. Your story about your uncle kind of triggered some thoughts. My dad is a product or a child of an unwed 16-year-old back in 1929.
Wow.
And I didn't know he was adopted until I was in my 20s. None of us children did. Him and Mama raised 8 of us. And, you know, he taught us to love who we knew as Grandma and Grandpa, the beautiful couple that adopted him at age 2. And we are forever grateful to them, but we're also forever grateful to the biological grandmother, who we know her name, and we know the biological father's name. In fact, unbeknownst to us, we grew up with the families. And so in the same small community, but Dad was sent to St. Louis to a Catholic orphanage at the time. And that's where my grandparents, who I knew as Grandma and Grandpa, adopted him. But I'm forever grateful because my mom and dad instilled that value of every single life, honest. But I had no idea why my dad was so pro-life. And he used to speak in front of churches and just share the message. And Mom and Dad would host these dinners for organizations, pro-life organizations. And I always thought, what is it about my mom and dad, especially my dad, being so strong about his beliefs?
Amen.
And then we find out he was adopted. So it really made sense. But even without knowing, he instilled that in us as children.
Amen. That's great. That's a beautiful story, sis.
Thank you.
Brother?
Well, I'm good. Happy to, frankly, I was a little reluctant to do this, but glad we had the opportunity to do so. Just share our story.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are sharing it too, because it's very important. It's very important, and you guys know that better than me, and you know that better than most. And so,
by the way, I think I heard on the radio, I don't know, a week or 2 or 3 ago that 3,000 number that I heard 20 years ago when we started this journey of kids in the state of Kentucky ready to be adopted, needing to adopt a family. I heard 4,000 just a couple weeks ago. So
it's not
the
getting
need
better.
is still there.
Yes. Well, brother, we're going to conclude right there, and I just want to thank you both again. Maybe we can do something like this, down in the future.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for hosting us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, brothers.
Nice to meet you.